welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into an incredible story.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, it really is. It's about spiritual devotion, loss, and the power of a teacher's love.
All the big stuff.
You got it. And it's all right there in Autobiography of a Yogi.
Classic.
You shared an excerpt with me focused on Paramahansa Yogananda and those final days with his guru, Sri Yukteswar.
Yeah.
And wow, let me tell you, it's a real emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely. It's, well, one of the things that grabbed me right away was that Yogananda's almost childlike need to hear his guru say, I love you.
Right.
You know, it made me think about how even in a relationship that's so deeply spiritual, we still crave that human affirmation. We need it.
You're so right. It's such a human thing to want to hear those words.
It is.
And I love how Sri Yukteswar, who is usually so reserved, responds with such raw emotion.
I know, like you're seeing a totally different side of him.
Exactly. It just reveals the depth of their connection.
Yeah. It goes way beyond just saying, you know, those three little words.
Well,
this is true paternal love.
Absolutely.
Like he's finally acknowledging this bond they've always shared.
It's so true. Okay, so then we move from this really intense, moving exchange to Yogananda's public life.
Interesting shift.
It is. We see him giving a speech at Albert Hall, reuniting with his old classmates. It feels so different from those quiet moments with his guru.
I think that contrast is really deliberate.
You do.
Because it subtly highlights Yogananda's growing influence, the impact of his teachings.
You're saying it foreshadows his work's reach.
Exactly. His work would eventually reach a global audience.
Okay, so it's like we're seeing the seeds of his future being planted, right?
Yes.
And speaking of planting seeds, we come to the Winter Solstice Festival.
Yeah.
At their hermitage in Serampore.
Oh, yes.
Music, feasting, spiritual teachings, the works. And this is where Sri Yukteswar does something that really surprised me. He asks Yogananda to address the crowd.
Yeah, big moment.
And get this, he asks him to speak in English.
I know. Especially since this is, years before Yogananda even goes to America.
Right. It makes you wonder if Sri Yukteswar already knew about Yogananda's destiny.
To bring these teachings to the West.
Yeah, like it was all part of some master plan.
It's like a little nudge toward his future path.
Preparing him.
Yeah.
So the next day, things get even more serious. Sri Yukteswar gives Yogananda the title of Paramahansa.
Now, Paramahansa, that's not just any title. No, it means supreme swan. And in the yogic tradition, it signifies someone's reached a whole other level. They've transcended duality, enlightenment.
Wow. I had no idea it was that deep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so on top of this incredible title, Sri Yukteswar also starts hinting at his own departure.
From this earthly plane.
Yeah. This moment feels really crucial, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because it signifies a transfer. Spiritual authority, responsibility, all going to Yogananda.
Like a passing of the torch.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Yogananda is completely oblivious.
It's hard to watch.
I know. Sri Yukteswar is expressing his final wishes, settling his affairs, and Yogananda,
Denial, maybe?
I was going to say, could it be denial? Facing the loss of his guru.
It's got to be hard, but maybe there's also an element of divine protection.
Like he wasn't ready to fully understand. It adds this whole other layer to their dynamic, like a kind of cosmic irony.
Oh, it's powerful.
So then, despite Sri Yukteswar's reluctance, Yogananda takes off, travels to the Kumbh Mela.
The massive spiritual gathering.
Exactly, and he gives us these amazing descriptions, the sights, the sounds, all these different holy men, or sadhus.
The Kumbh Mela is really like a microcosm of India's spiritual landscape.
It is, isn't it? You have sadhus living with wild animals, others who've taken a vow of silence.
Each representing a different path within Hinduism.
It's incredible. Yeah. And there's this one sadhu, Yogananda meets him, and this sadhu embodies such radical simplicity. And it makes Yogananda, even Yogananda, yearn for a simpler life. It makes you think, even someone so spiritually advanced can still have those moments.
Of longing.
Yes, longing, maybe even doubt.
I think it reminds us that no matter where we are on our own spiritual paths,
we're all still human.
We're all still human.
I love that. So, after this incredibly intense experience at the Kumbh Mela, Yogananda travels to Vrindavan.
Okay.
Meets Swami Keshavananda. And Keshavananda has a message for him from the elusive Babaji.
Babaji,
yeah.
The legendary immortal yogi.
The one and only.
A figure shrouded in mystery.
Right. incredible spiritual powers, or so they say.
Yeah, his presence is huge in the book. You know,
Yes.
it really is. Like, he represents the highest aspirations of the yogic tradition.
Totally. And Yogananda is really hoping to meet him at the Kumbh Mela.
I bet.
But no luck.
No.
Keshavananda relays this message from Babaji saying, nope, not going to be there. But he promises to meet Yogananda another time.
Well, that's got to be a little disappointing.
Right. You build up this anticipation.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's also kind of comforting, you know?
How so?
Especially given what's happening with Sri Yukteswar.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, even if my guru passes,
Yeah.
I'm not completely alone.
There are other guides out there.
Exactly. There are other teachers to help along the way.
It's like a safety net.
It is.
Yeah.
So then Yogananda returns to Calcutta.
Okay.
And that's when he gets the news
About Sri Yukteswar.
about Sri Yukteswar, that he's passed.
That's a huge turning point in the book.
It is such a moment of grief, but also transformation.
I can only imagine.
He rushes to Puri and finds his guru's body,
Oh, wow.
sitting in the lotus posture.
The pose associated with meditation.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
spiritual awakening, right?
Exactly.
But what really gets me is how Yogananda describes the body.
What does he say?
He says it's radiant and peaceful, almost lifelike,
Like he just fell asleep.
almost. And this ties into a really important yogic belief,
Oh.
the belief in conscious death.
So, in yogic philosophy, death isn't seen as the end.
No, not this abrupt end, you know.
Like in the West.
No, like in the West.
It's a transition.
Exactly.
And you can prepare for it, even control it to a certain extent
Through yogic practices.
through yogic practices. You can consciously choose the moment of your departure from the physical form.
So it's not just about dying peacefully, it's about consciously detaching
Exactly.
from the body.
From the body. And Sri Yukteswar's passing, the way Yogananda describes it,
Yeah.
it embodies that ideal,
Like he consciously chose the time and manner of his departure.
leaving his body in a state of serene composure.
It's a powerful concept. Really challenges how we in the West think about death.
I can see that.
It's not something we talk about much, is it?
No. We tend to fear it, see it as this big unknown, this terrifying event,
Whereas in yogic philosophy, it's a natural part of life.
a transition to a higher state of being.
So after finding his guru's body, Yogananda performs the funeral rites. There's a memorial service and even a tribute published in a Calcutta newspaper,
Really?
acknowledging Sri Yukteswar's contributions to spirituality.
Wow. Public acknowledgement like that is pretty significant.
It is, and it shows how his influence went way beyond just his students.
I mean, he wasn't just teaching yoga postures and meditation.
Right, he was bridging the gap between East and West,
Right.
promoting religious understanding, fostering unity between different traditions.
It's true visionary.
Yeah, but for Yogananda, of course, the loss is deeply personal,
Of course.
and he's grappling with his grief.
Trying to reconcile his understanding of death with the pain of losing his guru.
It's that classic struggle, right?
Yeah. Even when we intellectually understand death, the emotions are still there.
The emotions hit hard.
Yeah. And there's this detail Yogananda shares later that just broke my heart.
Oh,
He finds out that on the very morning he left for the Kumbh Mela,
yeah.
Sri Yukteswar had collapsed, crying out, "Yogananda is gone! Yogananda is gone!"
Oh, no.
Like, he knew intuitively that they were parting ways for the last time.
That's so sad.
It really underscores how deep their connection was.
It wasn't just teacher-student. It was something more.
Something that transcended physical distance.
Exactly. And to add another layer to that, Sri Yukteswar's young disciple, Prafulla,
Right, I remember him.
remembers him saying, I shall have to tell him some other way.
Like, he knew he had to find another way to communicate about his passing.
Yeah. It almost makes those subtle hints, those cryptic remarks, even more
But
meaningful.
he was trying to prepare Yogananda on some level.
On a subconscious level, maybe.
Maybe. So what happens next?
So Yogananda throws himself into his work, giving lectures, meeting people,
Trying to keep busy,
but you can tell he's struggling.
still grieving.
Yeah. He describes his inner state as a stream of black brooding, polluting his inner river of bliss.
Wow. That's a powerful image.
Isn't it? It captures that inner turmoil, that darkness that's surrounding him.
Even with all his spiritual understanding, he's still human.
He's still human, feeling the full weight of his grief.
So true. So what about his return to the West?
Well, as he's preparing to sail back, he's torn,
Beam.
his desire to return to his work,
Yeah.
and this yearning to stay near his guru's resting place in India.
That pullback to India is strong for a lot of people.
It is, isn't it? It's a conflict between duty and devotion, you know?
Absolutely. Duty to his work, devotion to his guru.
He's booked passage on a ship leaving from Bombay.
Okay.
He needs to get his car on board, but there are all these problems.
Oh, no.
And the ship authorities ask him to cancel his passage.
So he's stuck in Bombay.
In a way, yes. But instead of seeing it as a setback, he decides to seize the opportunity to go back to Puri.
He goes back.
Yeah, he says, never mind, I want to return once more to Puri.
Wow. He really feels that pull.
He does. He needs to reconnect with his guru, to find some solace at his gravesite.
It's like a pilgrimage of the heart.
It is. But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
While he's in Bombay, he receives a telegram.
A telegram?
Yeah. It wasn't even intended for him.
Who was it for?
Another one of Sri Yukteswar's disciples.
Okay.
And it urges this disciple to come to Puri Ashram at once.
Oh, wow. It's got to send chills down your spine.
Right. Especially after everything that's happened.
Yeah, like is something else going on?
Yogananda is overcome with anxiety.
Oh, I bet.
He drops to his knees, prays for his guru's life to be spared.
Even though he knows.
Even though he knows Sri Yukteswar has passed.
It speaks to the intensity of his devotion.
It does. Like maybe, just maybe, there's a glimmer of hope.
That the news was wrong.
But as he's about to leave for the train station, he hears this voice.
A voice.
This divine voice within him. It says, do not go to Puri tonight. Thy prayer cannot be granted.
Wow. So he doesn't go.
He surrenders to the divine command.
Heartbroken, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. And he stays in Calcutta.
What happens next? What happens next?
So the next evening, he finally sets out for Puri. But as he's leaving, this black astral cloud covers the sky.
Oh, that sounds ominous.
It does, doesn't it? And then while he's on the train, he has this vision of Sri Yukteswar sitting very seriously with a light on each side.
Wow.
And Yogananda asks him, is it all over?
What does Sri Yukteswar say?
He just nods and then vanishes.
Chilling.
It's like a confirmation from beyond the veil.
Yeah.
You know, a glimpse into that continuity of consciousness after death.
It's a powerful image.
So when he gets to the Puri train station, the stranger walks up to him and asks, have you heard that your master is gone?
Oh, wow.
And then the stranger just disappears. No other words.
Like he was a messenger or something.
Right. Like sent to deliver this final confirmation.
It's all very mysterious.
It is. Yogananda describes his soul as a volcano, seething with rebellion.
It's intense.
But then as he approaches the Puri hermitage, that inner voice speaks to him again.
The one that told him not to go to Puri.
Yeah. This time it tells him, collect yourself.
Yeah.
Be calm.
Like a reminder to find peace amidst all the chaos.
Right. And then he enters that ashram room and sees Sri Yukteswar's body.
Oh, wow.
Still sitting in the lotus posture.
Remarkable.
It is. And Yogananda can't believe that life has actually departed.
He describes the body as being radiant and healthy.
Yeah, almost like he's just sleeping.
Such a peaceful image.
So Yogananda conducts the funeral rites.
Of course.
And there's this beautiful memorial service. And then a moving tribute is published in a Calcutta newspaper.
Wow. So many people acknowledging Sri Yukteswar's influence.
I know. It talks about his contributions to spirituality, his impact on bridging the gap between Eastern and Western thought.
A true legacy.
Absolutely. But Yogananda, well, he's still heartbroken.
Of course.
He returns to Calcutta, can't even face the Serampore hermitage yet.
It's too much.
And he's consumed by grief, questioning where his guru has gone.
I imagine it's hard to let go, even with all his spiritual understanding.
Right, like a part of him can't accept it.
It's that human side of us.
So he throws himself into his work.
Giving lectures, meeting people.
But he's still struggling, you know?
Yeah.
He describes this stream of black brooding polluting his inner river of bliss.
Such vivid imagery.
And then, as he's preparing to sail back to the west, he's torn
between going back to his work.
Yeah, and staying in India near his guru's resting place.
That conflict between duty and devotion.
Exactly. He has his passage booked,
right,
but he needs to get his car onto this ship.
Right.
And the ship authorities ask him to cancel his passage because there are problems getting it on board.
So what does he do?
Well, he decides to go back to Puri.
He goes back again?
Yeah, one last time. He feels this overwhelming urge to visit Sri Yukteswar's gravesite.
Like he needs closure.
Exactly. So he arrives at the ashram and is led to the garden where Sri Yukteswar is buried.
Okay.
And as he's standing by the grave, he's suddenly overcome by this urge.
What kind of urge?
To sit in the lotus posture, right there on the freshly turned earth.
The lotus posture. That's not just any yoga pose. It symbolizes spiritual awakening, transcending limitations.
And for him to want to do that there, at his guru's gravesite.
It's like he's on the verge of something big.
And that's exactly what happens.
Tell me.
As he sits there, meditating, all that grief starts to fade away.
Wow.
And he feels Sri Yukteswar's presence.
Not as a ghost.
No. As this living presence, full of light.
Like his spirit is still there.
Yeah. And then Sri Yukteswar appears before him.
Oh, wow.
Not as an apparition, but as this radiant being of light.
It sounds like a mystical vision.
And Sri Yukteswar explains that he's chosen to stay connected to the physical plane to guide Yogananda.
To guide him on his mission.
To bring these teachings to the West. And it's like, in that moment, all of Yogananda's grief transforms into this sense of purpose.
To carry on his guru's work.
Exactly. He knows he has this vital role to play, to share these teachings with the world.
It's beautiful how his grief turns into this calling.
It is. And that's where the excerpt ends, leaving us with this feeling of both loss and spiritual continuity.
Sri Yukteswar may be gone, but his teachings, his love, they live on.
It's a reminder that even in death, these connections endure. They transcend time and space. So for you, dear listener, what resonates most deeply from this story? Yogananda's yearning for his guru's love, the descriptions of spiritual India, the idea of a teacher preparing their student for something greater. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And if you're intrigued by what you heard today, I highly recommend reading the full Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a book filled with so much wisdom and insight, it can really change your perspective on life.
It's a journey you won't soon forget. Until our next deep dive, stay curious.
Thank you for listening till the end. Please subscribe, turn on the notifications, like, comment, and share with your friends. This will help more listeners to discover our channel and content.